Welcome back to the video. Today we're going to be working on a Gravely 152Z 52-inch deck, I believe 23 horse Kawasaki engine. Just doing a service on it. Basically just going through it, making sure everything's working like it should. Replacing things that need to be replaced. It's that time of year for us, mowing season, so I've got a lot of mowers that come in and I need to get done, and got to do mine too, but just show you a basic rundown of what I do and get everything ready, so let's get to it. So just doing basic service on it, change engine oil, air filter. Most likely I like people to change their outer air filters every year. Doesn't matter if you blow it out or whatever. The more times you blow out an air filter, the more likely you're going to create holes in it, and then you'll have tiny dirt particles going into your engine, and that's not good. So recommend changing air filters out once a year. If it's got an inner, which is a safety, you don't need to change it every year. Change it every 3 to 5, depending on how many hours you put on your machine. Same thing with air filter, depending on how many hours you put on your machine. Lawnmowers basically are annually, unless you're running over 50 hours a year, which if you're doing commercial stuff, you're doing oil changes and stuff all the time. But yeah, change oil, oil filter, fuel filter. Fuel filter is always every year too. Just keep up with the basics. Just change it. I know sometimes it can get expensive, but just change it. Saves you money and time in the long run. Make sure you got everything checked over. Ones like these that have hydros might have hydro filters. You need to change the hydro filters. This one does not have a hydro filter, but it is also low in oil. And this one is good on hydraulic fluid. It doesn't need changed. I just need to top it off. But fun part is finding out where the drain is, which is right there. My pan, get a wrench. Every machine's going to have a different drain on it. Some have quick, easy drains. Some have just plugs. It just depends on what your machine was set up with. So like this one, just got a quick and easy one. You loosen it and you spin it open, and then when it opens, it'll drain all the oil out. Take your dipstick out, filler cap or whatever, to let it breathe so it drains faster. Okay, so while that's draining, I'm gonna go ahead, well, I'll do that too. Got my parts already. What I need is my marker. What I always like to do is, well, I'll have to find that in a minute. Just lost my cap to my pen. What I like to do is you write down the hours and the date you changed it. So it was I like to do that so that way I know when it comes back, I know when the last time I changed it, last time I was messing with it. Most people don't do that, so that way if somebody else were to check it and decide to service it, they would see that, hey, somebody's been in here at this date and changed this at whatever date, at how many ever hours. Same thing with the oil filter, same thing with the fuel filter. Oil filter's pretty loose here, which I don't like to see. Then they tend to leak, and then they end up having problems, and not normally good. New oil filter. I just leave the oil residue on there. Make sure that you don't double O-ring it, because sometimes the O-ring comes off the old filter. But then, I like to put them on, I say hand tight, but pretty snug. So that way, you know they're tight, they ain't coming off. Same thing, date it. Gives you proof that you serviced it. Doing Grizz? Then you can also see how many hours they're running it too when you do that. Most people don't pay attention to that. Where was I getting all the pliers? Sometimes fuel lines will have shutoffs. Sometimes they won't. In this case, it does not. It has dual tanks. It used to have a fuel shutoff and do dual tanks right here on the front. It used to have a deal where you could shut the fuel off. You'd have the right tank or left tank. But somewhere down the line, I've worked on this mower before, I had removed that because it was broke, and I just put a T in, so now it runs off both tanks, so that just it just siphons off both tanks. But fuel filters will always tell you the direction of flow. They'll have an arrow on it, and normally direction of flow goes towards the carburetor, away from the flow of the tanks. So you want to figure out which direction that is, and then replace your fuel filter. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it isn't. Just always make sure you got a finger ready. Plug the hole. Sometimes helps if you twist and pull at the same time. If you do it quick enough, you won't spill much. Spill a little bit, but it'll be all right. Okay. I know I said earlier this one doesn't have a hydraulic filter. I lied. It does have a hydraulic filter. Apparently I just wasn't paying attention. So I'll film that later. But it's got a reservoir tank here and a hydraulic filter that sits underneath. I need to get a new filter. I didn't do that. But the oil's done draining. Oil filter's on, fuel filter's on, air filter's in. So go ahead and close our thing again. Or close the thing, not again. Oh. All right, close that. So, the oil I'm using, you can either do 30 weight or 10W30. I like 10W30. Some people do 10W40. I guess it just depends on what you want to do. But I also have been, I'm going to say been on a kick. It's not a kick really. I've just realized with being in the, because I'm an ag diesel tech and have been working on tractors and trucks and cars and stuff my whole life. Just realizing that, these oils and stuff that they make for vehicles, are not all that great. Full synthetic, you know, all this other stuff. So I have a high mileage Suburban, and kind of makes you nervous because it's high mileage. But instead of running the cheap oil in it that I've been running in it, and full synthetic, and you know, with all whatever else in it, putting, you know, I added Lucas additive to it, thinking that, you know, oh, that'll help it out. Well, it's a load of crap. So now I run 1540 in my Suburban, and 1540's been around for a long time. It's been running a lot of tractors, even gas tractors. Heck, even heavier weight oils like my Deere here. You know, just for better lubrication. But when I was running the other stuff in my Suburban, I'd have to top it off all the time because it was leaking. And couldn't figure out where it was leaking from. Thought it was the oil pan, checked the oil pan, everything was fine. Thought it was looked like it was leaking around the oil filter, and then I thought it was a rear main seal, and I thought, man, that'd really not be good if I have to take the transmission out and do a rear main seal. So one day I was just servicing a tractor, and I thought, man, you know, I've been putting this oil in these tractors for many, many years, and yet don't ever really have issues with oil leaks or whatever, unless a customer's, you know, abusive to the tractor and whatever. But this oil's been put in these tractors for many, many years, and these engines have thousands of hours on them. I mean thousands of hours. And I'm like, man, I wonder what makes it so special. Well, when you take 10W30 like this, that is a diesel engine oil. The minerals and stuff that they put inside this oil are made for engines that have higher compression, that are beat up a lot harder. So it makes more sense that the more abuse the engine is when it's running, they would need a special oil to take care of the abuse. So in vehicles, they're like, you know, they don't really need that kind of oil. We just skimp on this and tell people it's great for it. But they end up causing problems and whatever. So anything I put in anything anymore, I make sure it's a diesel engine, is what it'll call it. It's a diesel engine oil. And it'll say it's, you know, formulated for diesel engines and whatever. But that's what I've been going with in mowers, and the place I work for has been doing that. Because number one, it's cheaper to buy through the dealer the diesel engine oil than it is to just buy diesel engine oil and then oils for mowers and then oils for everything. It's just easier to buy one type of oil because then you're using it in every single thing. So, and we rarely have any issues unless obviously the customer doesn't take care of it or is abusive or whatever. But with our customers that they've had for many years, with the same mower for many years, don't have issues because they keep on top of their services and they use good oil and so on and so forth. So sorry for ranting about that, but just wanted to tell you that it's amazing to me how I went from running the regular, and I was running Valvoline in my vehicle, and which Valvoline to me is a better, higher grade oil, and I was putting a quart of Lucas in, and it was leaking. I'd always have a leak. I'd always have to, maybe every week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, add about a quart of oil to it. Ever since I've been running 1540 diesel engine oil in my Suburban, I have to add 0 to my engine, because it has that formula in it that helps with sealing the seals and keeping things moving like it's supposed to, and taking the abuse of everything running inside the engine. I don't burn oil, I don't leak oil, and it just makes more sense that why would I run what I call a cheaper oil in my vehicle. So that's kind of why I was saying this. And I've been doing it in my mower, because in the new Briggs mowers they've had problems where the bottom crank seal will leak. Then it leaks all over the PTO and leaks all over the belt. Then the belt's all wet with oil. Then it starts slipping. Then you start having problems. So I started running this 10W30 or 30 weight, depending on what I wanted to put in it. I put 10W30 in some things depending on the use of it. If people use it in the winter, they start it, they move it, whatever, I put 10W30 in. If they're just using it strictly for mowing, it gets put away for the winter. 30 weight's perfectly fine. Well, like I say, it just depends on what you're using it with. You want to go with something that has a little bit lighter weight, especially colder weather. And that was another thing too. People are asking in the winter if it was harder to start my vehicle. It got down to about 10 degrees. And I think one day it was about 5 degrees. And I came out and fired right up. Now, when it was down into the negatives when it was here, it would not start. But that was because my battery was so dead from the cold, it wouldn't even crank. But other than that, when starting in the winter, it started like I was running 5W30 in it. But like I say, I've been putting this stuff in tractors for many years. And I recommend, if anywhere, and I've looked into getting one for my vehicle, if you're going to have cold temperatures, get a block heater. Good thing to do too is like a pan heater. They make either magnetic ones if you have a metal pan, or they make sticky ones, which if you have an aluminum pan, it just sticks to the bottom of the pan. And I say this because, especially when, colder, with all that heat building up through the engine block, it'll also heat up the battery that's inside the engine compartment. So that way you won't have that problem in the winter. Same thing with tractors, same thing with lawnmowers. And I tell you this stuff because a lot of people don't tell you these things. People who take their vehicles into car dealerships, the dealerships aren't going to tell you that stuff because they're going to want you to keep coming back. They're going to keep wanting you to spend your money. They're going to tell you things to do. All right, I got noises and stuff going on all over here. I'm going to jack up the front. I'll just put the jack up underneath here. Jack it up to where I can get under it, get to the blades. Okay. Most times, if the deck is completely clogged full of stuff, you would want to clean it out. This one is very clean. I'll show you. Let's see if you can see, but it's very clean. No grass buildup or nothing under it. Get my sockets and then I'll take the blades off. In this instance, jack it up. Things falling apart. Nope. Ain't it? That was it. So I'll show you here. These blades here are a little bit wider than the new blades. These are also like a mulching blade, which are all right, depending on what you're doing. As you can tell, you can see how thin it is right here. And then as far as the teeth go, you see this one's missing. And these are kind of getting wore. But it's like you can see this one, you know how thick it is and whatnot. But if this was okay, like this, there's just a little dull, you would just go at the same angle with your grinder. I use flat discs, which is like little sandpapers stacked on top of each other. Grind that down until you get a nice sharp edge. It doesn't have to be like a knife, but just sharp enough. But since these are bad, you know, they're pretty wore out, I'm gonna go ahead and replace them, get him some good high lift blades. So go ahead and install those. Bolts underneath, make sure they either have some sort of grease, oil, or something on them, or anti-seize. Anti-seize works really good. That way, next time you go to take them off, they're not rusted on. Just be careful when you got it jacked up. You can put jack stands under it if you want. Just be careful not to bump it off because it could land on you. The best thing to do is just stick one arm underneath it. So that way if it does drop, it'll be your arm and not your head. Using an impact works out pretty well too, because you don't have to sit there and pry on it. If you just stay out to the side, keep one arm in, and normally when I do this, I say normally, I always do it, not normally. I'll always raise the deck up as high as it'll go, because if it does drop, my arm's under it, it's not going to pin my arm down, it'll miss my arm. But it won't drop. I have confidence in it. Using common sense, not being stupid, not kicking the mower, not prying on the mower. Just use common sense. And if you don't feel that safe, put a couple jacks under it. Not saying that it wouldn't happen, but I have pretty good faith in myself and trust myself, so you just take things slow, take it easy. You don't have any problems. Just like that. But like I say, blades, just take that angle grinder. If they're not wore out like these, just take that angle grinder right along that edge. You can see this one's been ground quite a bit with how much that's looped and how thin it is here. But you just lay it right along that edge, just keep it right at that same angle, work it back and forth. Flat discs work really good. People like to use hard stone, which is perfectly fine. I just prefer the flat disc. It seems to put the edge on easier, seems to, you know, not take as much material off as fast. And I don't know, the rattle of a hard stone, I just don't like it. I like the flat disc better. But that's how you do blades. There are no grease zerks on these spindles, so they're sealed bearings, which I hate. But like I say, everything on these mowers anymore will have sealed bearings or sealed bushings or whatever. They will not have grease zerks on them because they want the part to fail. Now, in an instance, most times, like if this was my mower with this spindle, I would make this spindle, make sure that it had open bearings on the inside. I would put I'd drill a hole here, put a grease zerk in it, and then you'd put a breather hole in the top cap. So that way when you greased it, the grease would come out the top. And then you'd know it was packed. But anyway, that's done. I don't need to grease it. I'm gonna check the air in the tires, make sure they're at proper air. Normally about 20 in the fronts, about 8 to 10 in the back. I'm gonna check those, and then after that, I basically be done other than the hydro. I messed up. I forgot a filter. That was my bad. But I'll show that in a minute when I get the filter and stuff. So anyway, I'm gonna work on getting the air compressor going and checking air in the tires. Okay. Come on. I just got this digital air check off Amazon. Works pretty good. I like it. I use one at work. Same brand. It's called Astro AI off Amazon. It's been really good. The one I got at work works really good. It gives you PSI, bar, KPA, and also kg/cm squared. Whatever that is. Comes with a light. I like it. Works good. Tells you how much air you got in it. If you need to let some out, just press the button. Lets air out. Yeah, like I say, you want to do about 15 to 20 in the front. Especially at mid-mount like this, you want to make sure that your tires have the same air pressure in them, because if not, you can have one tire lower than the other and then your cut will be off. It'll feel like, or your grass will be at an angle a little bit. Then it won't look good. Since that's done and over with, normally what you do is just go through every function, make sure things work. Like this has got a power raise and lower deck, so you'll make sure it raises and lowers like it's supposed to. He's got it set to where he wants it. All he has to do is lower it down. That just adjusts your height and everything. Raises and lowers fine. Lights work. One thing I did notice on this, the travel of the arms, which are a little loose. That's just because of but the travel of this arm compared to the travel of this arm is not right. So I'm going to adjust the travel. Do the same thing with this way. Travels forward a little more than the other. There's adjustments down here to make that adjustment. So I'm going to adjust those to where they travel the same distance so they're not off. Because if they're off, then you start spinning in circles, where one side seems to drag slower than the other. And you don't want that. So what I do is basically run them out to about where they're even. And a good indicator to tell if they're even. Stick your sticks together. Pull them both back. They should look pretty even. You can look at the bolt on that side and the bolt on this side and say, yep, look pretty good right there. Tighten your jam nut down. Same thing forward. So like this one, I can tell that one is has way less threads than this side. So, well, I don't know if I got it or not. Yep, I got it, okay. So, we're just gonna run those out a little bit. Check right there. Now they're even. And a good way to make sure that they don't do that again is to make sure that jam nuts are tight. Just like that. So, air in the tires, blades are good, deck's cleaned out. I know all this is cleaned out. I know I said make sure you blow it out, whatever. I know this is cleaned out. The guy that runs this makes sure that everything's pretty well clean. Doesn't mow in wet grass, stuff like that. Takes pretty good care of it. next thing, well, like I say, I have to do the hydros. I'll do that at a later time. I have to go get a filter first, and then I'll add oil. But I believe that's it for now. There's no grease zerks. Not a 1 on this one. So that's it. Hope you guys learned something. I do these videos to help people learn how to do things on their own. I try to teach people what I know, and let's put it this way, I might not always know exactly what's right or what's wrong, but I feel like I got pretty good knowledge of for what I do, because what I've done for many years has worked for many years. Haven't had any complaints as far as, you know, working on customer stuff and whatnot. Believe me, there's a lot of things that I've done that haven't worked, but I always try to figure it out, and if things don't work, then I pretty much change things up and then try to fix it. But that being said, hope you guys learned something. Hope you guys start doing things on your own. Start working on your own stuff. Today's world, everything's expensive. It's hard to, I mean, it's hard to pay for a lot of things anymore. Price of everything's going up. So people need to start doing things for themselves. Not only just mechanic wise, do things for your family. I mean, like us on the homestead, we've got, I mean, we ain't got very many animals. When we're downsizing as much as we can when we can. I say downsizing because we don't need all the things that the world says you need. If it were my choice, I wouldn't even have a mower, but gotta have a mower. So do it for your family, do it for yourself. Because every day you can make yourself better. But that being said, thanks for watching. God bless you.